Today, we expose 8 white rice brands that are nutritionally closer to refined sugar than real food. Milling strips 75 to 90% of vitamins, 80% of minerals, and all fiber, leaving pure starch that spikes blood sugar faster than table sugar. Some contain measurable arsenic, and number 8 is the budget import in millions of pantries right now, polished until nutritionally empty. You'll learn which brands are most processed and what whole grain alternatives deliver real nutrition. White rice dominates every aisle. Cheap, familiar, cooks fast. For decades, Australians trusted it as safe, neutral carb, but industrial milling strips the bran and germ in seconds, removing B vitamins, magnesium and all fiber. What's left? Pure starch, blood sugar spikes, insulin surges. Hunger returns in an hour. White rice won't spoil because natural oils are gone. It sits in warehouses for years. Real rice, brown, red, black, spoils because it's alive. White rice is shelf-stable because it's nutritionally dead. Let's start with Australia's biggest brand. Number 1, Sunrice White Medium Grain. Sunrice is the default rice brand in Australia. At around $4 for a 2-kilogram bag, it's stocked in every supermarket from Cairns to Hobart. The packaging shows golden fields, Australian flags, and proudly Australian grown messaging. And to be fair, Sunrice does grow rice in the Riverina region of New South Wales, which produces some of the highest yielding rice crops in the world due to heavy clay soils and ideal summer conditions. But here's the problem. Even though the rice is Australian grown, it's still heavily milled white rice. Sunrice mills all paddy rice in their facilities in Deniliquin and Leeton, where the husk is removed to create brown rice. Then milling removes the germ and bran layers to expose a white starch center. And finally, the rice is polished to give it a pearly sheen. That polishing step is the issue. It strips away the nutrients, leaving pure starch. A 1-cup serve of cooked white rice delivers almost zero fiber, minimal protein, and barely any vitamins or minerals. It's essentially a carb bomb designed to spike your blood sugar and leave you hungry 90 minutes later. Nutritionists point out that when you eat white rice alone, the glycemic response is similar to eating refined sugar. Your body doesn't see it as a whole food, it sees it as glucose. So why is this a problem? Because millions of Australians eat white rice daily, thinking it's a healthy staple. They pair it with protein and vegetables, which does slow digestion slightly, but the rice itself is contributing almost nothing nutritionally except calories. If you're eating Sunrice white rice multiple times a week, you're choosing the most processed version of a grain that could be nourishing you. And if you thought Australian-grown rice was the only issue, number 2 is an imported brand with even less transparency. Number 2, Coles Jasmine Rice. At $3.50 for a 2-kilogram bag, Coles Jasmine is one of the cheapest rices on the shelf. The front label says, fragrant long grain. The back label says, product of Thailand. That's the first red flag. Imported rice from Thailand and Vietnam is typically grown in paddies that use higher levels of pesticides and fertilizers than Australian farms. And because it's shipped in bulk and repackaged in Australia, you have no traceability to the specific farm or region. The milling process for jasmine rice is aggressive. Jasmine is prized for its soft, sticky texture and floral aroma. But to achieve that texture, mills polish the grains multiple times until they're almost translucent. That removes every trace of bran and germ. What you're eating is pure white starch with a pleasant smell. The nutritional panel confirms it. Zero fiber, minimal protein, almost no micronutrients. And because it's imported, there's no way to verify pesticide residues, heavy metal contamination, or arsenic levels. Independent testing of rice in Australia and New Zealand found that some imported varieties contained arsenic concentrations ranging from 0.09 to 0.33 milligrams per kilogram, And while most samples were below the Food Standards Australia-New Zealand limit of 1 milligram per kilogram, regular consumption of rice with even low arsenic levels raises questions for long-term health. Critics point out that when you're buying the cheapest imported jasmine rice, you're trusting a supply chain you can't trace. You have no idea what chemicals were used in the paddy, how long the rice sat in storage, or what contaminants might be present. And because it's so cheap, families buy it in bulk and eat it daily. You're trading price for transparency, and that's a gamble. Number 3, Woolworth's basmati rice. Same story as Coles, different label. At $4 for a 2-kilogram bag, Woolworth's basmati is marketed as premium long-grain rice with a delicate flavor. The label says, "Product of India." Basmati is traditionally aged for months to develop its characteristic aroma and fluffy texture. But cheap supermarket basmati is often blended from multiple harvests and regions to keep costs low. That means quality is inconsistent batch to batch. Some bags cook fluffy and separate, others turn gluey and overcooked. The milling process is the same as jasmine. Aggressive polishing to remove all bran and germ. What's left is white starch with almost no nutritional value. And because basmati is imported from India, you're dealing with supply chains that cross continents, sit in shipping containers for weeks, and pass through multiple warehouses before reaching Australian shelves. Testing by SBS revealed that some imported Indian rice brands contained banned insecticides and pesticide residues above Australian limits. Many shoppers report that Woolworth's basmati has a stale, musty smell when opened, which suggests it's been in storage for months or longer. That raises questions about storage conditions, pest control, and whether the rice has been treated with preservatives or fumigants. The nutrition panel is identical to other white rice. Negligible fiber, minimal protein, trace vitamins. You're eating refined carbs with an Indian flag on the label. Number 4. Aldi Romano jasmine rice. Aldi's rice is shockingly cheap. At $2.50 for a 2-kilogram bag, it's the lowest priced white rice in Australia. The front label says jasmine fragrant rice. The back label says product of Thailand with no further detail. That lack of transparency is the problem. Aldi sources from the lowest cost suppliers, which means the rice is grown in bulk paddies using industrial methods, heavily milled to remove every trace of nutrition, and shipped in massive containers to Australia, where it's repackaged under the Romano house brand. You have zero traceability. You don't know which region of Thailand it came from, what farming practices were used, or how long it sat in storage. The quality is wildly inconsistent. Some batches cook soft and fragrant, others are hard, chalky and tasteless. That inconsistency tells you the rice is blended from multiple sources with no quality control. And at this price point, corners are being cut everywhere. The milling is aggressive to maximize shelf life. The rice is likely stored in non-climate controlled warehouses where it can absorb moisture and develop off flavors. And because it's so cheap, families buy it in bulk and feed it to kids daily. You're saving $2 per bag, but you're eating the most processed, least traceable rice on the market. Number 5, Black and Gold, long grain, white rice. Black and Gold is another budget house brand, often found at IGA and independent grocers. At $3 for a 2-kilogram bag, it sits between Aldi and Coles in pricing. The label is minimal. Long grain white rice, product of Australia and/or imported. That vague sourcing statement is a red flag. When a label says and/or, it means the supplier changes depending on price. Sometimes it's Australian rice, sometimes it's imported, and you have no way to know which batch you're getting. The milling process is standard, heavy polishing to remove bran and germ, leaving pure white starch. The nutritional profile is identical to every other white rice. Zero fiber, minimal protein, negligible vitamins. But what concerns critics is the lack of brand accountability. Black and Gold is a no-frills house brand with minimal marketing and no transparency about sourcing or quality standards. You're buying the cheapest white rice available with no guarantees about where it came from, how it was grown, or what chemicals were used. It's rice as a commodity, not rice as food, and the texture and flavor reflect that. Many shoppers describe Black and Gold rice as bland, musty, and prone to clumping when cooked. That's what happens when rice is blended from low-grade batches, milled aggressively, and stored for months without climate control. Number 6. Uncle Ben's microwave rice. Uncle Ben's is owned by Mars Inc., one of the largest food conglomerates in the world, and their microwave rice pouches are everywhere in Australian supermarkets. At around $3 for a 2-pack, they're marketed as convenient, pre-cooked rice ready in 90 seconds. The problem isn't just that it's white rice, it's that it's been pre-cooked, flash-frozen or preserved, then reheated, which destroys any remaining nutrients and creates a gummy, artificial texture. The ingredient list reveals the issue: cooked long-grain rice, water, canola oil, and natural flavors. That canola oil is there to prevent clumping, but it also adds omega-6 fatty acids and processing byproducts that wouldn't exist in freshly cooked rice. The rice itself is milled white rice with all bran and germ removed, so you're starting with pure starch. Then it's pre-cooked using industrial steamers, packaged in plastic pouches, and stored at room temperature for months using preservatives or modified atmosphere packaging. By the time you microwave it, the rice has been processed 3 times, milling, pre-cooking, and reheating. The texture is soft, mushy, and uniform in a way that fresh rice never is. It doesn't taste like rice, it tastes like rice-flavored paste, and because it's sold in single-serve pouches, you're paying over $10 per kilogram for what's essentially the lowest quality rice available, pre-cooked and preserved. Nutritionists point out that microwave rice offers 0 advantages over cooking rice from scratch except speed, and that speed comes at the cost of texture, flavor, and nutritional integrity. If you're eating Uncle Ben's microwave rice regularly, you're paying a premium for the most processed rice format on the market. Number 7. Homebrand white rice. Homebrand is the generic house brand found at various independent supermarkets, and their white rice is the rock-bottom budget option. At $2 for a 1-kilogram bag, it's cheaper per kilo than Aldi. The label gives almost no information. White rice may contain traces of other grains. That may contain disclaimer is concerning. It suggests the rice is processed in facilities that handle multiple grain types, which raises questions about contamination and quality control. The rice itself is heavily milled white rice with no sourcing information, no origin statement, and no quality guarantees. Many shoppers report that Homebrand rice has a chemical smell when opened, cooks unevenly, and clumps together in a gluey mass. That's the hallmark of low-grade rice that's been stored poorly, milled aggressively, and blended from whatever's cheapest. The nutrition panel is identical to every other white rice: 0 fiber, minimal protein, trace vitamins. But at this price point, you're at the absolute bottom of the market. This is rice as cheap calories, not rice as food. And the lack of transparency means you're trusting a supplier who won't even tell you where the rice came from. Number 8. Sunrice Quick Cups. And here's the worst offender. Sunrice, the brand Australians trust most, also makes single-serve microwave cups that are nutritionally worse than their regular white rice. At around $4 for a pack of 2 cups, you're paying $16 per kilogram for pre-cooked white rice in plastic. The ingredient list is simple: cooked white rice. But that simplicity hides the processing. The rice is milled to remove all bran and germ, pre-cooked using industrial steamers, then packaged in plastic cups designed for microwave reheating. The texture is soft, gummy, and artificial. It doesn't behave like rice. It behaves like instant mashed potatoes. uniform, mushy, and devoid of any structure. And because it's pre-cooked and stored at room temperature, the rice has been sitting in those plastic cups for months, absorbing whatever chemicals leach from the packaging. Independent testing has found that plastic packaging can leach phthalates and BPA into food, especially when heated. So you're not just eating nutritionally empty white rice, you're heating it in plastic and consuming whatever compounds migrate from the cup into the food. The convenience factor is the only selling point, and that convenience comes at a massive cost. Degraded nutrition, artificial texture, plastic contamination, and premium pricing for the lowest quality rice format available. These 8 brands represent the bottom of the market. Cheapest imports with zero traceability, aggressive milling for shelf life, and supply chains you can't verify. Blended from unknown sources, stored for months, priced so low that quality control is minimal. Not all white rice is the same. Australian-grown rice from traceable sources with clear harvest dates is a different product. But the budget brands we covered, $2 imports with vague labels and inconsistent quality, that's where corners get cut. Next time you shop, check the origin. Look for specific regions, not just imported. Avoid brands with and/or sourcing statements. That means suppliers change based on price, not quality. You don't have to avoid white rice. Just avoid the brands treating it as the cheapest commodity possible. If this opened your eyes, like and subscribe. We expose the difference between budget shortcuts and real quality every week. Comment which brand shocked you most. Stay sharp, Australia.